Hi, my name is Clayton Holton, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for ending the federal raids against medical marijuana patients like myself. I have recently asked Rudy Giuliani and Mitt Romney about the subject, and instead of answering my questions, they turned their backs to me. I was wondering if you could tell me how you are a better candidate for the medical marijuana patients like myself.
I would absolutely never use the federal government to enforce the law against anybody using marijuana. There's a couple reasons for that. We talk about medical marijuana, and as a physician, it's controversial in conventional medicine. I happen to believe that it's probably very, very helpful, and I'll bet you there's a few testimonials for that. But even in the legislative sense, in the political sense, the federal government doesn't have this authority. I mean, if a state especially comes in and says that you can use it, like some of these states have, then for the federal government to come in and say that we are going to override the state law, even if it's just a modest legalization, and override this law, that's an offense, just on the issue of states' rights. But how can people do this? How can an individual talk to you like that and just say, well, I'm a compassionate conservative. I want you to suffer. That's what they're saying. You know, it's outrageous. And they don't know the history. How long has this war on drugs been going on? Essentially since the early 70s. The first marijuana laws were passed in 1938, and they knew they weren't allowed to outlaw it, so they passed a huge tax on marijuana. And even the war on drugs total war on drugs is rather recent. You know, think of all the respect that they had for the Constitution in, I guess, 1919 when they wrote a prohibition against alcohol. They knew they had to change the Constitution. And then they repealed it because it didn't work. But all this drug war business is done without authority. It's sort of obvious that they don't have the authority to do this. We have probably spent $500 or more billion since the early 70s. What do we do with individuals? Let's say an individual that never committed a violent crime gets caught 3 times in a nonviolent act of using drugs, even if they were hard drugs and even if they hurt the individual, they can be put in prison for life. At the same time, we have murderers and rapists and child molesters getting back out on the street. Who was it today that was just released after 35 years? I was shot somebody who was famous. And anyway, Wallace, he attempted to kill him. But he gets out, he's back out on the streets. But yet they will put mandatory sentences. Our prisons are flooded with non-violent criminals. We treat people who aren't drug addicts as criminals. Do we treat all alcoholics as criminals? Oh no. Politicians drink alcohol. They're not going to do that.